What if you got to experience Pokemon before it was Pokemon? Taking the Kanto region 3 decades before the events of Pokemon Red and Blue, this is a reimagined Kanto. This is Kanto Origins. Hey, I'm Zatumi and this is the first video of a 3-part series where I share my idea for a past Kanto region. Now, this isn't Legends Kanto. We aren't ancient, but instead hopped a few decades back to see how it all originated. Checking out a version of the Pokemon League that's just starting out, a ton of gyms that are different yet run by somewhat familiar faces at the same time, and a much younger Professor Oak that looks like he's been pumping some iron. And I ain't talking about that steel type. This is obviously all not canon and just my way of sharing an idea that I really wanted to explore. Again, this is the first video of a series and it's just going to be a short introduction of the thought process behind it all. I encourage feedback because these types of ideas only get better with collaborative minds. The next video in the series is going to be all about the characters, the gym leaders and who they're related to, as well as the Elite Four. Then the final video of the series is going to be more about how all of these characters connect together and interact in the world of Kanto Origins. What sort of conflicts may have been present, and how did we get to the Kanto region we all know and love today? Speaking of the Kanto region, it's not quite exactly how you remember it. For example, the power plant hasn't been built yet, and neither has the cycling road, which means there's nothing connecting Celadon to Fuchsia City. The Sylph Company is a brand new emerging tech, bringing innovative new tools that is stirring up quite a lot of commotion and conflict. However, that's for a future video. What we really have to talk about is one of the more important things, and that's you, the protagonist in the story, and where you're starting off. You aren't starting off in the good old-fashioned Pallet Town, but instead you'll be starting your adventure in Cerulean City. This is where you meet a young Samuel Oak, an assistant of the region's professor, Professor Maple. And this is where the fun really starts to begin, because Professor Maple is actually Bill's grandfather, an inventor and the professor who created the first prototype of the PokePC, where trainers can store their Pokemon. It's also here where I found my first hiccup, deciding which trio Pokemon should be your starters. Now, I had some difficulty in figuring out which trio of starters made the most sense. I knew I wanted to skip Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle since they're kind of what makes Red and Blue. So then I thought, what about Stone Evolutions or maybe 2-stage Pokemon with type advantages? But their base stats were kind of all over the place, and Stone Evolutions, at least for this region, didn't make too much sense. And then it hit me. Professor Maple is studying the phenomena of Pokemon who evolve via trade. So he offers you, the player, one of the following Pokemon: a Geodude, Machop, or an Abra. He asks you to take one and help it grow and come back to document the phenomena when it's time to evolve. Now, these three aren't crazy strong, and they don't have a type advantage against each other, but what they do have in common is that they all require a trade to evolve into their final stage, which brings us to another conflict in the story, being that you, the protagonist, don't want to trade your starter Pokemon, and I think that brings a unique element to the story. So after you pick your starter, the young Samuel Oak recommends that you take on the new Indigo Challenge, where you travel all around Kanto and collect 8 badges from the gym leaders of the distant past. Then challenge the Indigo Plateau, a new prestigious facility on top of a mountain where you can challenge the best of the best in all of Kanto. But it all starts with you getting your first badge, and that means heading towards Lavender Town. But that's it for this intro video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next week for when we go over all the gym leaders, their teams, and so much more.